Hi Kingfishers and welcome back. This is week 3 of the Easter story. The first week we looked at John the Baptist preparing the way and Jesus' baptism. And last week we looked at some of the things that Jesus was teaching, and we specifically talked about putting God first. Now we move on a little bit more in the story. Jesus has been teaching the disciples, he's done amazing miracles, and he's been really explaining to people how to live their lives for God. But now we get to a really serious point. Today in the story, we're going to hear about how Jesus tells his disciples that he is the Son of God and that he's going to have to die on the cross. Now we'll see that his friends don't really understand because they couldn't understand that he was really God's Son and that he was going to die on a cross to change the world for everyone. It must have been really hard for them to kind of understand that and accept it. But Jesus was warning them and telling them that these things were going to happen. And it prepares the way for us to really lead up to Easter. Next week, we're going to talk about Palm Sunday, which is the real kickoff into Easter week. And so let's hear about Jesus first telling his disciples that he's going to have to die and their reactions to it. Today, we're going to read from Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 to 23. So it says, Jesus went to the area of Caesarea Philippi. He said to his followers, "I am the Son of Man. Who do people say I am?" They answered, "Some of you say you are John the Baptist. Others say you are Elijah. And others say that you are Jeremiah or one of the prophets." So Jesus asked them, "Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus answered, "You are blessed, Simon, son of Jonah. No person taught you that. My Father in heaven showed you who I am. So I tell you, you are Peter, and I will build my church on this rock. The power of death will not be able to defeat my church. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. The things that you don't allow on earth will be things that God does not allow. The things that you allow on earth will be the things that God allows." Then Jesus warned his followers not to tell anyone that he was Christ. From that time on, Jesus began telling his followers that he must go to Jerusalem. He explained that the Jewish elders, the leading priests, and teachers of the law would make him suffer many things. And he told them that he must be killed, but on the third day that he would be risen again. Peter took Jesus aside and began to criticize him, saying, "God will save you from those things, Lord. Those things will never happen." But Jesus said to Peter, "Go away from me, Satan. You are not helping me. You don't care about the things of God, but you only care about the things that men think are important." Wow, so a lot happens in these verses. At the beginning, Jesus starts to ask them, "Who do you say I am?" Because lots of people thought that maybe he was a prophet or maybe he was John the Baptist, but we know that he was the Son of God. And that's what Simon Peter says, that you are Christ, you are the Son of God. They could see because God had given them the eyes to see it. Sometimes when we speak to people, they don't recognize that Jesus is the Son of God. And that's because their eyes haven't been opened by our Father in heaven to be able to see that. But the disciples had been gifted from God, and so they could see that this was the Son of God, that Jesus was in front of them. But then Jesus goes on to explain to them that because he's the Son of God, some things are going to have to happen. He tells them that he needs to go to Jerusalem, and we're going to hear all about that next week. But he tells them also that all the people, they're going to treat him badly, and that he's going to have to die on a cross, but that he will rise again. But that must have been really confusing for them. They wouldn't understand. Why would Jesus need to die if he's the Son of God? Why would these people not take him seriously? And that's why Peter goes and says to Jesus, "No, none of these things will happen because you're too great and God is too good." But Jesus says to him, "Go away from me, Satan." And the reason he said that was because Peter was thinking like how we think sometimes. We don't know what the big plan of God is. We don't always understand what's happening. And so Peter just didn't want Jesus to be hurt. He just wanted his friend to be with him. But Jesus knew that he had to die on a cross, that was going to mean the whole world was going to change. That's why you and me and our families and everyone in the world can be a part of God's family, because Jesus died on the cross so that we could have a relationship with God. So in this part of the story, Jesus starts to tell them about it. He's trying to prepare them because next week we're going to see the really beginning of Easter when Jesus goes to Jerusalem, and this part of the story starts to come alive. See, Jesus knew for quite some time what he was going to have to do, but he had to wait until the right time when God told him that it was the time for things to happen. So next week we're going to see about his journey to Jerusalem and how people received him there. So we've seen in the story this week that the disciples were confused. They found it really hard to understand, and they didn't really understand God's plan. And maybe sometimes we feel like that. We don't always understand God's plan. But we need to hold on and trust God because He can see the big picture. Just like Peter couldn't see the big picture, we can't always see the big picture. But God can. And so we have to trust Him and know that everything is going to work out for good. Because Jesus dying on the cross worked out for all of our good. So this week we learned a little bit more about the story. We heard about the very first time when Jesus starts to tell them what's going to happen in the future. Join me next week to hear all about Palm Sunday and learn about Jesus entering Jerusalem. Bye guys!